I'm sure it was scary to be standing there having a conversation with somebody in the parking lot and a bunch of armed federal agents come running in. I have no doubt that that was traumatic. And I apologize that happened to you. But you did truly happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was just pure circumstance that you encountered ATF at all that day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Do they have like body cams and all that stuff, all of them?
I don't believe so.
Oh my God.
So ATF here does not have body cams yet. Now, if there was another agency on the scene, they might have. Like, for example, we work a lot with MPD or with the gang unit. We weren't there for you, my understanding is. We don't even know who you are. I think it just happened to be an unlucky situation where in the 30 seconds that our guys were rolling up, you happen to be meeting this guy. It has nothing to do with him whatsoever. You will never be added to his case. You're not going to be lumped into some category that he's in. It has nothing to do with him whatsoever. He just happened to be standing, I guess, this far away whenever we showed up to arrest him for an arrest warrant. Okay? That's the extent of that. You're not all of a sudden a defendant in whatever he's doing or anything like that. As at this time, you're not charged with anything.
Right.
Okay? Like I said, she's not here, or she would be standing here to answer your questions because we're stand-up people. I want you to have all the information I have. Like, there's no tricks, there's nothing on my sleeve, okay? I'm just trying to be honest with you. I will encourage Stacy to try to stay in the loop with you so you don't have this anxiety, like, of the fear of the unknown kind of thing, like what's happening behind the curtain.
Nobody even gave us the information on how to get here. Like, we had to find that out through people he knew.
Okay.
I called her the first time she picked up. It was the same day. She asked who I was so she could save my number, but after that she never picked up. I emailed, multiple times. I sent the paperwork through the email. That's why I'm here today.
A brief introduction of myself. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I moved to the United States in February 2002. I was 19 at the time and enlisted to serve in the U.S. Navy a few months later. I just recently retired after serving 20 years of active duty. Though I was still on active duty at the time this event occurred. It was the summer of 2022 while on terminal leave. I was out driving around my new Tesla and enjoying the free time I thought I had earned. I have a clean criminal record and an unblemished 20 years of serving active duty. Let's get started. A local store that sells miscellaneous items such as exercise equipment, bicycles, furniture, rifle parts, and appliances. I messaged the owner via Facebook to make sure he would be at the store when I arrived. I asked him if he had any spare buffer tube that I needed to finish a build. I would prefer to just pick one up locally while I was out instead of placing an order online. I arrived around 1 p.m. and noticed that the store owner was outside the store. He muttered something to the effect of the ATF might be patrolling, watching him, and planning a raid as soon as he entered his store. I dismissed this as paranoia. I expressed that it wasn't a big deal and that I would be on my way. He then suddenly decided to go in anyway. Now inside, we looked around for about 40 minutes. Unbeknownst to me, the individual was really under investigation. At approximately 1:40 p.m., both of us exited the store to search his vehicle for the part. On my way out, I popped my Tesla's front trunk open as usual. It's an excellent space to store items, especially gun parts, and helps prevent the white interior from getting dirty. The store owner was walking with me, and we were still chatting. Not even 10 seconds had passed after approaching the front. Several vehicles and around 20-plus agents in full tactical gear stormed in, around us, and held us at gunpoint. Long guns were trained on us from every direction. Agents were yelling at us to keep our hands up. Another agent was yelling at the store owner, and I quote, "Don't use that. Don't use that." The moment was surreal. Seconds felt like minutes, and I thought I was done for. But situation was actually a lot worse after learning more about the facts later on. While I was being handcuffed and frisked, some agents were trying to open the car doors, but they had no idea how to operate the Tesla's door handle. They threw me in one of their vehicles and started the interrogation. They were under the impression that I was the city's kingpin, the big boss that was supplying the store owner and the whole city with solvent traps and machine guns. And what led them to this conclusion, you may ask? I have no idea, at least not until I obtained the Freedom of Information Act report. All I knew at the time was their impressions of me and what they were expressing verbally, which I quote, "nice vehicle and impressive guns." 2 days later, I got the agents on the video record stating they didn't know who I was. I just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I find that claim hard to believe because they waited for me to open the front trunk before they took action. Back to the day in question. I keep a firearm or two and some miscellaneous parts in the front. Sending a few rounds downrange can be therapeutic, and I just like having something ready when we go out camping or hiking. One of the agents was insinuating that I must be involved in something lucrative but illegal. The agent asked if I owned the vehicle and the fancy guns and said, I quote, "You must be single and have no children." I replied, I have 2 dependents. The Navy pays for the bills, which gave me an opportunity to focus on a hobby I'm passionate about. And that's visual art, concept art, and illustration. I am a skilled artist and I've recently accepted few commission work for video games among other things. It can be very lucrative, especially because I'm not pressured to take any offers and it allowed me to be selective. It was expected for him to be skeptical, but instead his facial expression implied that it was the biggest bullshit excuse he had ever heard in a while. He asked, and I quote, show me your work then. Told him to just search for my name on Google and include ArtStation. He saw my art, looked shocked, showed the other agent, gave a slight nod, then walked away. I was so furious at this point. I was watching the other agents take photos and selfies of the guns in a celebratory fashion. They weren't touching any of it. I figured they were not allowed to do so at this point. After 2 hours, they concluded that my version of the story checked out. They checked the store owner's Facebook conversation that further corroborated my statement. At this point, I'm guessing they've realized I'm not their guy and it was all a mistake. The agent assured me that they were just wrapping up the paperwork and then I could be on my way. They tore apart the store owner's vehicle and searched the store but found nothing of interest. The agent that told me about wrapping up started approaching, and I was expecting him to uncuff me and send me on my way. But instead, he asked for my consent to search inside my vehicle. I respectfully refused and asked to see a copy of a search warrant signed by a judge. The agent then asked, and I quote, why not? Do you have dope in there? I answered, no, I just don't want the Tesla's Sentry mode recording to get interrupted. Coming into a realization that they are being watched and recorded. The agent's demeanor changed from arrogant to concerned. He then walked away to relay the message to the lead agent. Another 20 minutes later, the agent returned to tell me that they were taking my guns and my parts that were in the front back to the station. I responded with an outburst and expressed to them that those items had nothing to do with my visit or the store owner. I asked if it was due to my refusal of the vehicle search. He answered, and I quote, we have the authority to seize them, they were in plain sight. 2 days later is when I realized the logical reason for the seizure. It was because they botched their operation. They mistook me for someone significant in their investigation and didn't find anything from the other guy. They refused to take responsibility and instead of reporting back to the station empty-handed, they seized my property for debrief, photos, and maybe even fabricate an out-of-context report in an attempt to justify the otherwise botched operation. I was horrified by their lack of knowledge of the rules that they were enforcing. At least 2 of the agents I interacted with had no clue if my suppressors were homemade or commercial. And they were a bit clueless when I said they were registered NFA, like they didn't know what I meant. I frustratingly added, quote, if you were referring to the submitted Form 4 with my fingerprints and photo and the $200 tax stamp that the ATF extorted from me, then yes, they were approved about a year after submission and everything I own is legitimate and within compliance. Even the agent that they assigned to pack my property was clueless about how to operate my guns. He was fumbling around when clearing the weapon similar to what was slung around his back. Fast forward 2 days, me and my wife visited their local field office to request my property to be returned. Also with me were all of the paperwork relevant to the seizure and a GoPro camera recording the entire evolution. The lead agent was not available, so instead I had to talk to these 3 individuals. This is when I captured the video recording of the entire conversation. One of the agents stated, and I quote, you happened to be at a wrong place at a wrong time. It was a pure circumstance that you encountered ATF at all that day. You are not charged with anything. I presented the tax stamps for the 2 suppressors and copies of the approved Form 4473. He then asked for the tax stamp for the SBR. I told them there was no SBR, the B and TAPC9 had a tailhook brace installed and there was an 11.5 inches upper that was not put together. He responded along the lines of, quote, the AR-15 was configured as an SBR when it was surrendered to the station. Appalled, I immediately asked them to review the body cam footage to confirm the state of the items upon discovery. He responded, quote, ATF here does not have body cams yet. I currently possess physical evidence that will prove my claim, but I'm not disclosing it at this point, so they can't prepare for it. Keep in mind, I had more video footage than any of them combined. This goes without saying. I started suffering from depression, anxiety, paranoia, and currently attending psychotherapy. I can't sleep because I'm always on edge, and when I fall asleep from exhaustion, I get nightmares. I just couldn't feel safe anywhere, and even in my own home, knowing what they did to the store owner and the way they treated him, his family, and fabricated charges against him. I check the county's warrant database every day just so I can prepare for a possible visit from the agency. A few days later, I got a hold of the agent and I requested an interview so I could show her the physical proof that would support my claim against their SBR allegation. I didn't disclose what exactly I wanted to present her and kept it vague. She stated that she would be out of town for her annual military training with her reserve unit and she won't be back for another 2 weeks. Fast forward 2 weeks, I received devastating news from my brother. I was informed that my sister was murdered at her home. Report states that 3 armed men broke into her house. She tried to defend herself with her handgun, but she was outgunned. I decided to drive cross-country to my sister's state of residence because I don't want to think about the logistics of the airfare, hotel, rental car, and the flight back. I was hoping driving could clear my mind from all of these shit that is going on. While en route, I contacted the lead agent to tell her what happened and even linked her to the news report of my sister's demise. She replied, and I quote, "Sorry for your loss. Take care of your family. We'll talk when you get back." At this point, I still tried to be reasonable. I just want my items back so we can all just put this thing behind us. I gave them the benefit of the doubt that they realized their mistake and were going to make it right. But instead of apologizing, they instead started treating me like a criminal. 2 weeks later, I was back home and trying to reach the lead agent. No answer for about a week, but when she finally picked up, she said, and I quote, "You need to stop blowing up my phone. You are harassing me. You don't even have any charges, but that could change if you keep this up. Do you want to stay under my radar?" I've only spoken to her 3 to 4 times at this point, so I wasn't blowing her phone up. I try to limit my phone call attempts to once per day. I replied, quote, "I still need to show you something. I need those items back. Those were my best setups, and I needed them for home defense." She replied, and I quote, "Don't even start with that. We know you have several others. Use those instead. But the ones that were taken were my best setups. I told you about my sister's murder and it was allegedly an armed home invasion. I want the most capable items back in my possession for home defense. I don't know what kind of intruders you were expecting, but sure." She replied condescendingly. Then later on, I did some digging and found that this lead agent that treated me like a criminal was the one that had a criminal record. She was newly transferred to my local ATF field office not even a year ago due to her reckless endangerment while drunk driving while serving as a law enforcement officer. If that don't infuriate you as a law-abiding gun owner, then you should be terrified. Not only they were operating incompetently, they also seems clueless of their own procedures and would even fabricate false evidence. I cannot confirm this, but the store owner claimed that he had charges allegedly illegal possession of machine guns. Those quote machine guns they were referring to were actually rare breed triggers that were seized from him a few months before the incident I was involved in. I guess when the ATF realized that there is still this ongoing lawsuit by Rare Breed, they altered his charges from quote machine guns to illegal possession of SBRs. At the time of uploading this, 28th of October, I want to note for the record that I don't have any charges, just in case they decide to retaliate due to my decision to make this public. I'm currently on a standstill. They just left me hanging. The uncertainty of them walking up to my door today, next week, next year, and they still have over $20,000 worth of my property, so they can do what they see fit. I cannot even enjoy my Tesla because it's triggering when I hear the front trunk being popped open. I consulted a criminal defense lawyer, but I can't afford to keep him on retainer. I've contacted politicians, the state governor, the senator, and even the representative that wrote the House Bill 2509. This was the bill that was passed a month before the incident. In summary, it's the bill that removed SBR and SBS from the list of prohibited items. I am aware that this is on a state level and ATF operates federally. Regardless, I have physical evidence to prove that I didn't possess any unregistered SBR at the time of seizure. The lawyer stated that I shouldn't worry about it because I have no priors and they will more likely dismiss everything. What bothers me is the when. How many months or years do I need to wait before I can resume my life and finally enjoy retirement? Please subscribe for more updates. If you have encountered anything similar, please leave a comment below. Any guidance is appreciated. I will be leaving a link on the description below just in case I decide to include a crowdfunding link later. Not sure if I'm going for it yet, but I can't afford to retain a criminal defense lawyer and the civil suit firm at the same time. Any help will be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.